Good afternoon. I apologize for being late. Is everybody ready? Is everybody okay? Okay. Thanks for coming on such short notice. Let me give you the best update that we have on the incident yesterday. A fair amount of detailed information. I'm sure you'll have some other questions. And of course, after that, I'll do my best to answer any questions that you might have. I know that there's also some additional just kind of information, rumor, speculation that's out there about yesterday. And again, I'll do my best to either clarify or even better provide the facts if we have them. Let me give a rundown from the morning. You can see that there are a host of personnel with us from Fire Department and Department of License and Inspections and PGW, Managing Director, and of course the Office of Emergency Management. At 11:09 a.m. yesterday morning, an incident was reported on the 400 block of Daly Street in South Philadelphia. Preliminarily, the city has determined that, of course, an explosion occurred due to natural gas. The explosion caused 3 homes to essentially implode: 426, 428, and 430 Daly Street, D-A-L-Y. The situation was placed under control at approximately 1 o'clock p.m. 8 people, including 3 children, were transported to area hospitals. 4 adults and 3 children were taken to Jefferson University Hospital with what is characterized as minor injuries, and they have been released. 1 person was rushed to the hospital at the University of Pennsylvania with severe burns and was later transferred to Temple University Hospital, where he is listed in critical condition. 28 homes on Daly Street remain evacuated. We are hopeful that we'll be able to reopen 22 of them to residents sometime this evening. A reception center was set up at Taggart Elementary School, 400 West Porter, after the incident and was closed yesterday evening. Residents are staying with family and friends until they can return to their homes. No one sheltered at Taggart Elementary overnight. The Philadelphia Fire Department stopped their operations at approximately 7 p.m. last night and resumed at 9 a.m. this morning to continue the investigation as to the cause of the explosion. Let me talk a little bit about utilities. The residents on the south side of Daly Street have no electric and are still out of their homes. PECO is scheduled to return today to replace their line in the rear and restore power. The north side of Daly Street, the homes from 401 to 421, and then skipping over to 437 to 445, can return to their homes. Residents on the north side of Wolf Street also have returned to their homes. The homes that are directly across 423 to 433, directly across the street from the explosion, those residents are still out of their homes. PGW isolated their main in front of the affected homes: 423, 425, 426, 427, 428, 429, 430, 431, 432, and 433, and though they are still without gas service. The Philadelphia Water Department was contacted to shut water off at 426 through 430 due to flooding. PECO is on site working to restore power. With regard to the Department of License and Inspections, the permitted work being done on the property was thoroughly inspected and was complete and code compliant the last time L&I was on site, which was on July 26, 2013. Shortly after the purchase of the property, the owner, SCK, Sam Charlie Kevin Investments, obtained 4 permits. There's a building permit for interior alterations in April, a mechanical permit for the installation of heating and air conditioning in April, a plumbing permit in April, and an electrical permit in June. All permits were issued to licensed contractors. All permits belong to the owner who pays for them. L&I conducted 14 inspections of this work between the issuance of the permits and 7/26/2013. All required inspections were completed. No violations were issued at any of the inspections. All permitted work at the property was finished. Construction was not ongoing. Final inspections for 3 of the 4 permits were done on Friday, July 26th. The property owner was present for those inspections. All work on the building, mechanical, and plumbing permits was found complete and in compliance with the Philadelphia Code. Therefore, of course, the work was approved and the permits were in a category or language, I guess, of L&I, the permits were considered closed. The only permit that remained open was the electrical permit. Electrical inspections are performed by the licensed electrical inspection agency identified on the electrical permit. And after their final inspection, they send the city a certificate. And again, in the L&I language, we close the permit. We received that certificate today. The only work being done at the property was considered cosmetic work for which no permit is needed. The hot water heater was installed and inspected as part of 3 plumbing inspections. During a June 24th, 2013 inspection, the inspector noted minor corrections that needed to be made to the hot water heater. These corrections were made prior to the final inspection on July 26, 2013. The Department of License and Inspections received no complaints about the construction at this specific property. There is, though, a lot of speculation as to what was happening in the house on Monday morning. Of course, I'm not in a position to truly and completely address rumors or speculation. Often that is what they are. All work requiring permits was completed by last Friday. Any work being done in the house on Monday, as I mentioned earlier, was cosmetic work, not permitted work requiring regulation by the Department of License and Inspections. The one issue that I will try to address, and of course there is no final answer at the moment, but there has been circulating around, I guess, either in the rumor or speculation category, stories about the contractor possibly lighting a cigarette in the house. That is pure speculation at this point. The fire department and the fire marshal's office is still investigating the actual cause of the incident. And of course, we are not going to comment or speculate on that particular issue until the fire marshal completes his report. Once the fire department completes its investigation, L&I will award a contract through what's considered a curbside bid process to complete the demolition of 426, 428, and 430 Daly Street. The property owners have been informed that demolition must begin immediately. And as I mentioned, as soon as the site is fully investigated by the fire marshal and turned over to the rest of the city departments and agencies, we will proceed with the demolition activity. And so with that, I will try to answer any unanswered questions. Bob, Mike.
Of the plumbing, did that in essence certify that the hot water heater was complete and hooked up and operating?
Yes, sir.
Could you identify yourself?
Sure. I'm Michael Fink, Deputy Commissioner at License and Inspections. That inspection confirmed that the installation of the hot water heater was in compliance with the plumbing code.
Was it hooked up? Was it operating?
I do not know.
So the certification does not judge whether or not it's in operation?
No. It determines whether or not it's installed per the plumbing code.
And as part of that code that governs the installation, wouldn't it have to be fully hooked up? And
It does not have to be operational at that time.
Mayor, what else with regards to the contractor? I know that the fire marshal's office did interview him. Did he have any discussion about what exactly had happened and kind of his experience?
So I'm not aware of that, so.
Question.
You all had spoken with the contractor. Did he describe what had happened in his experience?
That is not true. We have not spoken with the contractor. Right now, the contractor is intubated, and we haven't had a chance to do a formal interview with the contractor.
Could we get your names?
Derek Sawyer, Deputy Fire Commissioner.
And so no information from him about where it started, or do we have any information? Did it start in fact in the basement?
That's part of the ongoing investigation as we speak. We have the fire marshal on scene right now conducting an investigation, and they have not concluded the investigation at this time.
Now, PGW is also saying that they are not saying this is necessarily a gas leak. Do we have any confirmation that this, although it was confirmed to be a gas explosion, that it was in fact a gas leak?
You would have to ask PGW that question.
Are they present?
Yes, they are.
All right.
Repeat the question, Wendy.
But with regards to whether or not you all have confirmed this was a gas leak.
We haven't confirmed that this is a gas leak. I don't think anything with regard to what caused this incident has been confirmed yet. My understanding is that the fire department are the lead in the investigation. We're cooperating with them. But we're certainly not going to get out ahead of anything that they might want to confirm or talk about in terms of what caused this or didn't cause this, as the case may be.
And some of the residents along the blocks of Bluff and Daly suggested yesterday that they were smelling gas. Were there any reports, any calls that came into PGW that there were reports of a smell of gas the evening before, Sunday evening?
There were not. We went back through our records and there was not a single call into PGW reporting any odor in that area or suspected leaking gas. In fact, it's one of the things we want to reiterate here is that if anybody does think that they smell natural gas, irrespective of whether you're sure or you're not sure, some of the people interviewed yesterday kind of walked back their statements under questioning to say they weren't sure if it was natural gas or not. It doesn't matter. Call us, and call us at 215-235-1212.
Can you describe the...
Sorry, that guy over there had the hand up first.
Was gas on to this unit?
The account was in good standing at this unit, yes, so gas was available to the premises.
I didn't quite understand that. I hope you could describe what happens to gas service while a property is being renovated and what the procedures are for turning that gas service back on for inspections and or permanent use by the owners of the property, and whether those procedures were followed in this situation.
There is no way that I can speak to whether or not procedures were followed with regard to that work. I think that's part of the investigation that's ongoing. That information is yet to be determined. The only person I think who would really be able to answer that question is unfortunately unable to share his side of the story. With regard to what goes on in a house, I mean that there are any number of procedures that should be followed. I think Ed and I put it well when they talked about the work inside the house being done was described as cosmetic and so not requiring of permits. It is the kind of work though that does require a properly licensed and experienced contractor to undertake. There's no indication that that wasn't the case here. This may well be simply an accident that happened, despite the best intentions of everybody involved.
Well, with the gas service, what the PGW's records show as to gas service to this particular property?
Well, that gets into an area where we're discussing an individual's account at the premises, which we're not going to talk about in public here at the moment. That's private account information related to the house.
Are you asking
Sir,
whether
could
it's
you
on
say
or
and
not?
spell your name for us, please?
All right, I think back to the other, you asked was, it's the same question. Bob, you're asking was the service on?
Yeah. Had it been
It's the same
turned
question.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I thought you were talking about the specific account. Was gas service available to the house? Yes, it was. Gas service was on at that property.
throughout this whole renovation period?
As in, the owner of the property may have shut off the gas inside the property, but it wasn't the case that the account was suspended or that there was anything like that happening.
But it's basically up to the contractor to know what he needs to do to shut it off, to install those appliances, and then to turn it back on.
It's the exact same as any other utility, whether it's electric or natural gas. Once you're installing it within the property, it's really the responsibility of the contractor to take the proper care.
And can you identify the contractor? Can anybody here identify the contractor who is responsible for this work under L&I's procedures?
Sir, can you spell your name for us, please? Say and spell.
Barry O'Sullivan, B-A-R-R-Y, O''S-U-L-L-I-V-A-N.
I'm sorry, so are you referring to the contractors listed on the permits?
Well, I'm asking whether the contractor doing this work was one of the contractors
Which
identified on those permits.
Which work?
Work associated with the gas appliances, the hot water heater and or the furnace.
There's a contractor identified on the mechanical permit for the furnace installation, and there's a contractor identified on the plumbing permit for the water heater installation. I don't believe that the gentleman that yesterday works for them, he's been described to me as a handyman who was just doing cosmetic work.
So the person actually doing work at the time of the explosion was not one of the licensed contractors.
I am not sure if there's an employee or not. I don't know.
Do you know whether whether he's licensed by L&I to do any work?
I do not know. I don't know what the name of his company might be or whether he has one.
Now,
Not to, go ahead, sir.
is there supposed to be a relationship between the people doing the work and the people listed on the L&I permits?
Yes, but I believe the work that was being done Monday was not any work that was included in the permits. The permitted work was completed as of 7/26.
So so the cosmetic work, you didn't need any kind of license. It could have just been anyone that could have shown up and done that.
That's correct.
Done what, ma'am?
Turn on the water heater.
We're not saying that that person did that.
Okay, so when the cosmetic work that was done, it could have just been anyone
To
Anyone
light,
doing what?
to do the actual handiwork that was there. I mean, to physically walk in there, you don't need any kind of license at this point since all of the work that was permitted.
actually, the state's home improvement contractor license exempts contractors from Philadelphia license if you're working in a 1 or 2 family dwelling, which this was a single family dwelling. So for any kind of work other than plumbing, electrical, or mechanical work where the individual requires to pass a test locally, they only need the home repair license from the state.
So can we confirm something from yesterday? The rumors were that this started because of a water heater. So is that incorrect then? If you're saying this was just cosmetic?
I think that there's possibly a bit of conflating of a bunch of different pieces of information. It is not clear at the moment, other than the fact that work was complete in all of the permitted areas, including the installation of the hot water heater. That work was done. It is our best understanding that the individual who was injured was doing other work inside the house, possibly described as more of a tile person. He was doing some flooring work that does not require a permit, that does not require oversight by the Department of Licenses and Inspections. The hot water heater issue, if you will, the hot water heater, as best we understand, and an inspection on Friday, had already been installed. And we do not know at the moment whether this particular person, described to us as more of a tile person, a flooring person, had any connection or relationship with the various contractors that are licensed, that are permitted, whose work had basically been completed on Friday.
And you do not know if he was ever even in the basement or anywhere near the hot water heater, correct?
At this moment, we do not know that. And as described, that person is severely injured in the hospital, so we cannot get that particular information.
And is his physical or medical condition such that it's possible if he goes downhill, you would never know really what happened?
Well, I think, God forbid that were to be the case, and we pray that that doesn't happen. I am sure at some point, either by conversation with the owner, at least with the owner, we could find out who the individual is, what the nature of his work was. Was he, for instance, an individual contractor, floor tiling person, handy person hired by the owner of the property to do a certain thing that had nothing to do with the other four contractors and permitted work and having technically nothing to do with the hot water heater? I'm sure we could get that kind of information, I assume, by the owner, who, again, we have to assume hired the person. But I want to make sure, to the extent that we can try to be as clear as possible, the permitted work done by contractors, including the installation of the hot water heater, as best we can determine, was completed on Friday. I do not know exactly what the person, the man, I'm sorry, I don't know his name, was doing or not doing. I don't know where he was in the house. Obviously, he is severely injured. I don't know that he had anything to do with the installation because that had been completed. And we'll get through all of those facts as a part of the fire marshal's investigation. But we should not make any assumptions about what he was doing in relationship to any of the other permitted work.
Have the owners been cooperative?
I've not talked to you.
Has anyone received any comment from SDK?
I'm sorry.
Has anyone received any comment on updates from SDK, particularly the Executive Secretary, Steve Finney? Anything, the update from SDK?
At this point, it appears that none of the folks up here at least have talked to that person. I think, you know, if you, I mean, as you probably know, most of these folks here, their primary focus is on, you know, the disaster that happened and trying to save people's lives. We'll get through all of those other components, and again, through the fire marshal's investigation, I would assume that the fire marshal will have some discussion, at least with the property owner, and then other people attached to this situation.
And do you have an estimated timetable for when the fire marshal's investigation might be concluded?
The fire marshal generally takes however long the fire marshal takes, and no one tells the fire marshal what to do, including me. On the other hand, the fire marshal, in my experience, works thoroughly and rapidly, and will do their best. But these are complicated situations, most fires are, and where you have an explosion that essentially took down 3 properties without a lot of information. It is tedious, diligent work, but they are very good at what they do, and I am quite confident that they'll figure this all out.
Mayor, with regard to the demolition, what could the city be on the hook for as far as cost for those folks that are bidding for the cleanup there on Daly Street?
I mean, we do what we do. I mean, we have to fix the site. We'll try to fix it as best we can and make it as safe as possible for the folks on Daly Street. We'll go through whatever we, you know, go through. Mike might have more information.
Any of the costs for work that the city needs to perform on private property is billed to the owner. If the owner fails to pay, a lien is placed on the property.
Mr. Fink, could you clarify, it's possible to approve the installation of a gas-fired furnace or hot water heater without the gas actually being turned on and observing the thing in operation?
That's correct, sir.
And in this particular case, you don't know whether the gas was on or not at the time of the inspection?
I do not.
I think, as PGW indicated, there was service at the property. I think out of that, we'll take it that there was service at the property yesterday morning. I think, Bob, to try to go farther in your question, you very well may have some situations where someone has installed a particular appliance or device but is actually not ready for it to be on and operational because they have other things going on. Again, I have no idea about, you know, what was actually really going on in the property, but I think trying to get at what your question is, you know, housing alterations, renovations, all of those kinds of situations, everyone is different. things get installed, they're not necessarily ready for, prime time at the moment. They're not ready to be turned on at that moment because you have other things going on. But I don't know.
Is it possible for you to give us the name and age of the individual who is in the hospital?
I don't have that. At the moment, we are going to decline to do that primarily based on HIPAA regulations. This is a person who was in the hospital in a pretty serious condition. Under some other circumstance, we might be able to do that, but we're going to err on the side of caution on HIPAA regulations.
And the age?
I don't have any information on the person.
Does the city know that the gas leak originated inside the house itself?
I've got to push back on the supposition of your question. There is no evidence at the moment because we have an active investigation. When you use language like a gas leak, I can't accept at the moment the premise of your question because we don't know that to be fact. We don't know whether there was a gas leak or not. That the fire marshal will tell us that.
Mr. Mayor, to shift gears a bit here, you received some criticism for being away for the last couple of weeks. I was wondering if you can say where you have been.
I was spending some good quality time with my family.
Can you say where?
I'm not going to tell you where. And in regular communication with all the folks who also work in the city government. I've read virtually every one of your stories, stayed on top of what's going on in the city, and I appreciate the fact that you may have personally missed me, but I take my job very, very seriously and maintain my commitment to the citizens of the city. But from time to time, I actually do really enjoy some time with my family. Anything else? Thanks a lot.